Hello, everybody, and welcome to This Week in Football. Today, we are going to be talking about a bunch of things. The first thing we are going to talk about is the rookie quarterbacks from this year, talking about their stats, talking about how I thought they were, talking about genuinely if they surprised me or if they were actually underwhelming. Next thing we're going to get into after that is we are going to get into the new head coaches that have been signed as of Thursday, January 10th, the day that I'm recording this. And after, I'm going to talk about whether or not how much I like the move, what the coach should be able to do with the team, and general stuff like that. And then afterwards, I'm going to give you my game picks for the divisional round of the playoffs. So first off, we're going to talk about these rookie quarterbacks. And first one that I'm going to talk about is my favorite quarterback out of this draft class. That is Baker Mayfield. Now, Baker Mayfield coming out of Oklahoma, he was phenomenal. He was just amazing. I thought he looks like a generational type talent coming out. And obviously, the Cleveland Browns agreed because they selected him with the first overall pick in the draft, which I thought was incredibly smart. He was my number one quarterback on the board. I think he was genuinely my number 4 player in the entire draft. So when you get a guy like Baker Mayfield who can completely change your franchise, and realistically, Baker Mayfield is that guy to change a franchise. He came in day one, didn't start because he sat behind Tyrod Taylor, which necessarily wasn't the worst thing in the world for him. He had 13 starts. He threw for 3,725 yards with 20 touchdowns and 14 interceptions with 63.8% completion. Yeah, Baker Mayfield this year, if there wasn't Saquon Barkley, he would be my offensive rookie of the year. He had 3 comeback wins and 4 game-winning drives, which for a rookie, that is actually already really, really, really incredible. Just simply because it's so hard in this league, especially as a rookie, to come out and perform. That the numbers that he's doing were great. 27 touchdowns. I'm pretty sure he either tied Peyton Manning's record or he broke Peyton Manning's record for touchdowns as a rookie quarterback. Which, for a guy who only started 13 games is really, really, really good. And I think the Browns going forward with Baker Mayfield are going to be an unbelievable team. I actually have them as my sleeper playoff team for next year. I don't really think it's going to be sleeper playoff team. I think these guys, the Browns, have great defense, really good offense with Baker Mayfield. They just need to get a little bit more pieces together, but I'll talk about that later when I talk about the Browns' new head coach. But yeah, Baker Mayfield didn't surprise me at all with any of the stuff that he did. He came out, played amazing, played with swagger, did everything that he did at Oklahoma. I think he needs a little bit more weapons around him because right now he doesn't have the greatest wide receiving core. He has pretty much Jarvis Landry at wide receiver, and that's about it. Antonio Callaway is a decent number 2, but nothing crazy or special with that. But yeah, so I think give him a little bit more talent around him, and it's his rookie season. So you can't really get too angry at the stats. I think next year he could be potentially looking for the MVP type race. But yeah, Baker Mayfield, 0 issues with what he did this year. He looked great. Obviously, the interceptions are a little bit high, but that's to be expected, especially from a rookie quarterback who's passing the ball as much as he is. But yeah, Baker Mayfield, great player. Love what he did this year. He was my favorite quarterback out of all these guys that played, and I think he's going to be great for a long time. The next quarterback we are going to look at is the actual number 2 quarterback selected in the draft, Sam Darnold. Now, Sam Darnold started 13 games, played in 13 games. He had 17 touchdowns, 15 interceptions, and had 2,865 yards with completion percentage of 57.7. Had one comeback game and one game-winning drive. Now, I really like Sam Darnold. I think he's going to be a really good quarterback in this league. He just had the issue of he had a defensive-minded head coach that wasn't going to fulfill his potential. And the thing is, he plays for the Jets. Sam Darnold plays on arguably one of the worst rosters in football today. They don't really have a running game. They don't really have a passing game because the running back situation isn't great. That's why they're always linked to Le'Veon Bell in free agency. Then you have they realistically need to get they realistically need to get more weapons for Sam Darnold. That's the big thing for them. They need that. And once they get weapons for Sam Darnold, I think he's going to actively be a much better quarterback in this league. His interception ratio is definitely going to come down. But yeah, get him a little bit more weapons. He's going to be good. And obviously, he now has a new head coach who is an offensive-minded guru. He did wonders with Jay Cutler. But again, we're going to talk about that later. But yeah, I think Sam Darnold has a bright future ahead of him. I like what he did. I think he performed really well this year for what he had. He actually surprised me a little bit more than what I thought he was going to do. I truthfully, with the offensive weapons that he had, I didn't think he was going to throw 17 touchdowns. I knew his interceptions were going to be high just simply because he had nobody really to throw to. Moving forward, I think next year, Sam Darnold will be a much better quarterback. I'm looking forward to see him play next year. And yeah, next quarterback. So obviously the next quarterback we have to talk about is actually my least favorite quarterback coming out of college. I didn't think he should have even been selected in the first round, and that is Josh Allen. Now, here are Josh Allen's stats. He played... Josh Allen had 2 comeback games and 3 game-winning drives. He started 11 games, and he had 2,074 yards, 10 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions, and for a completion percentage of 52.8. Now, Josh Allen, to me, when he came out of the draft last year, a lot of people were talking really highly about him because of his arm strength. Now, arm strength is great for an NFL quarterback. He can throw the ball basically wherever he wants, whenever he wants. What you think his completion percentage should be a lot higher than 52.8. It's not his arm that's failing him. It's his thing between his ears, his brain. He has, in my opinion, a very lackluster football IQ. And you can see that, obviously, throwing for 12 interceptions. But on the opposite side, he only has 10 touchdowns. And he realistically didn't have the best of weapons around him. He had Calvin Benjamin, and that's about it. And even saying Calvin Benjamin, you're kind of going, like, that's your best option? Ugh. And he had Zay Jones, but I feel like Zay Jones needs to seriously step up his game. The Buffalo Bills, they need to really... They need to find weapons for this kid. I need to see him with weapons because coming out of Wyoming with Josh Allen, I wasn't impressed with him. He had such low completion percentage that his arm talent, I looked at that and went, he can throw the ball 80 yards down the field, but it's going to get picked off, and it's not going to be on target. I will say Josh Allen did surprise me a lot more with his legs this year. which was actually really, really, really surprising. He rushed for 630 yards with 8 touchdowns. That is absolutely huge. Nobody thought, I sure as hell didn't think Josh Allen was gonna run for almost 6,500 yards. But as a player, he was drafted with the 7th overall pick. You should be making plays with your arm. The thing that you are known for is having a good arm. You should be known for doing that, not your scrambling ability. And obviously, the scrambling ability has to be because he doesn't have that great of an offensive line. And he doesn't have that great of a wide receiving core. So I'm interested to see what the Bills do next year with him. They need to get him some more weapons, but I don't think necessarily the future is this bright for this kid just because he's already got hurt a lot for rushing, and I think next year you're basically going to look at him and go, okay, if we can stop him rushing and we can stop his arm, he's going to be a very ineffective quarterback. So the jury's still out on this kid just because he is young. He's going into his 2nd year, but I need to see a lot more from Josh Allen before I truthfully am satisfied to call him a franchise-type quarterback that he is. The next quarterback that we are going to talk about is the 10th overall pick, and that is Mr. Josh Rosen. Now, for me, Josh Rosen, coming out of the draft, I had him as my 3rd overall quarterback, behind Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold. But I had a lot of issues with Josh Rosen coming out. Obviously, we heard a lot of the talk that, does he even really want to play football? Is he that much of a competitor? And everything that I heard from that, it reminded me so much of a guy coming out of college that really looked good and then came to the NFL and just wasn't necessarily great. And that guy was Jay Cutler. Looked really good coming out of university, like Josh Rosen did, had a little bit of character issues, not off the field, but just in terms of playing. And Josh Rosen started 13 games this season, had a completion percentage of 55.2, threw for 2,278 yards with 11 touchdowns and 14 interceptions. So obviously, Josh Rosen didn't do what I hoped he would do. I hoped Josh Rosen was going to be similar numbers to Sam Darnold. And he's not necessarily far off, but when you're throwing for more interceptions than you are touchdowns, that is an issue. And I thought his completion percentage should be a lot better than 55.2. I was hoping it was going to be closer to at least the 58s or the 60s. Hell, he has a really decently good a defense. He has Larry Fitzgerald, who is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer for sure, no questions asked about that. He's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer, and you can only throw 11 touchdowns. Well, again, yes, you do have Larry Fitzgerald, and he is going to be a Hall of Famer, but he's older, I get that, and then he doesn't really have anything around him. David Johnson, the running back for the Cardinals, had more or less of kind of a down year. I don't have his numbers, but it wasn't as good as you'd hoped. Josh Rosen, he really, really underperformed for me. He won 3 games. He had 1 comeback and 2 game-winning drives, which, those are good, but I really think Josh Rosen needs to severely step up his game. I also think last year the reason he was so bad is coaching. Now that he has a new coach, and again, I'm going to talk about the new coach later, he should improve. You need to get him a little bit more weapons to help him out. You have a really good running back there. So I thought this year was just a bad year for Josh Rosen. Maybe he might have a Jared Goff, Mitchell Trubisky type turnaround going into next year. I hope he does, because I think he is a good quarterback. He just needs to really get proper coaching, more weapons, and if he has bad stats next year, then I think he's going to be ultimately a bust. But I think for Josh Rosen, he severely needs to improve next year. And then finally, we're going to talk about the last quarterback. This quarterback is Lamar Jackson. So Lamar Jackson, he was my 4th quarterback going into this draft class. I probably would have had him as my number 3. The thing is just that I didn't know how his play was going to translate into the NFL. I really didn't. He started 7 games through for 1,201 yards with a completion percentage of 58.2, 6 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Which he came in about the last half of the season. And obviously the big thing is with Lamar Jackson is his ability to scramble. In those 7 games, he had 695 yards with 5 touchdowns, which is huge. That is amazing what he was able to do with his legs. But this is the issue that I have, is that in those 7 games, you picked up almost as many rushing touchdowns as you did throwing touchdowns. And obviously, the offense is being modeled to fix that with Lamar Jackson. He has some decent weapons, nothing amazing, nothing crazy, but I was really hoping that he wouldn't have the numbers that he had rushing. Obviously, Lamar Jackson being a rushing, scrambling type quarterback is fine, but I really hoped for him that he would have decently good passing numbers, because in the NFL today, you can't be a running quarterback like Lamar Jackson is, because look at what happened to Robert Griffin. He got hurt. He looked like he was going to be the next Michael Vick, and everybody said Lamar Jackson's going to be the next Michael Vick. I think Lamar Jackson, if next year he can put up some really good numbers throwing, I would be happy to say that he is going to be the next Michael Vick. But with the defense that he had, he should have been a lot better. Lamar Jackson, obviously for me, I didn't really know how much he was going to play this year, if he was going to play at all. So his numbers are better than what I thought, because I didn't think he was going to really touch the field this year. But 6 touchdowns in 7 games as a starter, it's underwhelming from a passing standpoint. The interceptions aren't necessarily that bad, but I want more touchdowns. If you are going to be known as this franchise quarterback, this Michael Vick type quarterback, you need to throw more than 6 touchdowns. Obviously, we still have next season to see what he's like. I'm high on Lamar Jackson. I think he's going to be a decently good player in the NFL. But I really, really need to see him step up before it really starts to translate. And we will see what he's like for next year. So obviously for me, my number 1 quarterback coming into this year's draft class was ultimately my number 1 quarterback after the end of the year. That's Baker Mayfield. He wins my rookie quarterback, he wins my rookie quarterback player of the year. Next would be Sam Darnold, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and then Josh Rosen. Josh Rosen, to me, he just looked bad. But now we're going to go into coaches. And so we've had a bunch of coaches hired. I think the first one we're going to talk about is Vic Fangio going to the Denver Broncos. Obviously, me being a Chicago Bears fan, I did not want to see Vic Fangio go, because you don't want to see your superstar defensive coordinator go away. And unfortunately, this is what happened. The Broncos looked at him and went, we want him as our next head coach, which, with the way the defense is set up in Denver, I think he's going to really, really help out the defense, but he's not very well knowledgeable about offense. Luckily, they have Gary Kubiak, which should help, But that feels like to me it's basically like Vic Fangio is going to run the defense and Gary Kubiak's going to run the offense, and they're going to be completely separate, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because that's kind of what Vic Fangio was used to when he was in Chicago with Matt Nagy. Matt Nagy was basically the offensive guy. Vic Fangio was the defensive guy. And that's how it went. Ultimately, this is a really, really good move for the Denver Broncos. They're getting an incredibly, incredibly smart head coach, a guy who is always prepared for basically anything. I'm interested to see what he's going to be like on the sidelines. But I really like this move that what the Broncos did. They bring in a good head coach. The only thing that I would say is he is 60 years old, and this is his first head coaching opportunity. So it makes me wonder how much longer is he going to be in the league. He's coached for a long time. If he has a good career, he might last another 10 years, but typically you don't see coaches above the age of 70 continuing to be a head coach. And for Vic, you never know. He might want to hang up the gloves after 5 years. And then you don't really have that. Then you have to go looking for a new head coach. It has a different risk factor picking an older head coach. Obviously he has a lot more experience, but he might not be around for that much longer as opposed to a younger head coach. Which our next head coach we're going to talk about is Matt LaFleur. LaFleur, he was hired by the Green Bay Packers. He's a younger head coach. He used to be the offensive coordinator for the Tennessee Titans. I didn't really know much about Matt LaFleur. I know his offenses weren't necessarily the best. I genuinely thought the Packers were going to try to go after a guy like Josh McDaniels or maybe Bruce Arians, just because they want somebody who's going to mesh well with Aaron Rodgers and really transform that offense. I'm interested to see how he's going to really transform this team, whether or not he's going to, how much power that he has in the actual team. Because if he doesn't have any power in the draft, then I think it's just going to be the same issue. Because I think Mike McCarthy is a good head coach, and he was a good head coach, but, you know, him and Aaron Rodgers obviously clashed heads near the end of the year, or in the last couple of years. But I'm interested to see what this move is going to do. He's a young guy who's going to be able to help Aaron Rodgers and this offense out. I'm interested to see what he's going to be like as the head coach and what he's going to do with... I'm interested to see what he's going to do with the defense as well. So overall, I like this move, but I'm curious to see how it's going to play out. Mainly because it seems kind of like a move of just like, oh, we need a young offensive-minded guy. We need a young offensive-minded guy. And, again, not the worst thing. Sean McVay and the Rams, Matt Nagy and the Bears, it's clearly worked. But, yeah, I'm interested to see how this is going to go. Our next coach is Bruce Arians. He was the former head coach of the Arizona Cardinals, obviously left last year because he really didn't like coach the Cardinals and was up in the booth this year. And now he is the head coach of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I really like this move. I think Bruce Arians is a really, really, really good coach. It sounds like the Buccaneers are going to stick with Jameis Winston for one more year. I don't think that's a bad thing. I just don't think it's necessarily the best thing because Jameis Winston has shown a lot of potential, but he's also shown the same mistakes that he still had in college. I like this move. Bruce Arians is a good coach. He gets the best out of his players. He should really help out that team. I think it's a smart move by the Buccaneers. I genuinely thought Arians, he was going to more or less go to the Browns, but He ultimately ended up in Tampa Bay. I think he can turn this franchise around. I'm not sure how well he's going to be able to turn this franchise around, but I think he's going to do a good job. But I overall, I like this move. I really do. I think they're good. I think he's a good coach, and I think the Cardinals the Bucks need this new firm kind of head coach, because he is a very much of a hard ass type of head coach, which I think this team needs. I like the move. Next coach is Adam Gase, going to the New York Jets. I like this move a lot because I think what the Jets need is they need a younger minded head coach. Adam Gase is not a younger head coach, but he is kind of a younger head coach because he's still in his 40s. And I think they need this kind of guy with the Jets for Sam Darnold, because he's going to get the most out of Sam Darnold. Obviously, Adam Gase, when he took the job in Miami, he was said to be the guy that's going to transform Ryan Tannehill's career. Obviously, Ryan Tannehill at that point isn't going to be the option. I'm surprised that they're still actively using Tannehill as their starting QB. But I really like this move, him and Sam Darnold. He's going to be able to build something with Sam Darnold the same way that Matt Nagy did with Mitchell Trubisky and Sean McVay did with Jared Goff. He's going to be able to build this team better. And I think the Jets are probably going to be that team that nobody thinks is going to win the division. They might sneakily decide that they're going to win the division. The only unfortunate thing is they are in the same division as the Patriots with Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. But, you know, I really like this move because he is a young offensive-minded head guy. And from the last 2 years, you've seen a young offensive-minded guy with a young quarterback. Get him some weapons, get him some value. It's going to be good. This is honestly probably my favorite pairing just because it is a really, really good pairing. Next coach is Freddie Kitchens, offensive coordinator for the Browns, gets the head coaching job. I really like this move. He did wonders with Baker Mayfield throughout the year, and I think he's going to continue. This Browns team is going to win their division next year. You heard it here first. The Browns are going to win their division next year because Baker Mayfield, the game is going to slow down so much more for himself that it's going to be a lot easier for Baker Mayfield to make those good decisions. Freddie Kitchens is going to bring in the right pieces. His defense is a top 10 defense right now, and they might be able to crack the top 5 next year. They look so good. I like this move. The Browns hire internally a guy who knows what they want to do with this franchise. I think they have the right pieces there. Great move by Cleveland. Keeping their own, first off, and then a guy that's going to actually help their team. Like that move. Next head coach is Cliff. I don't know. I'm forgetting his name. Just give me a sec to look it up. Cliff Kingsbury. Texas Tech head coach. I actually really like this move because when he was the head coach of Texas Tech with Patrick Mahomes, obviously you saw what Patrick Mahomes was in college and is in the NFL today. He's going to get the most out of Josh Rosen. He is, again, it sounds like I keep repeating myself, just, this young offensive-minded head coach who's going to be able to change the way their young quarterback plays the game, like a Matt Nagy or a Sean McVay did. And if you were to ask me which of these head coaches has the best opportunity, I think this guy does because, well, actually, I think Adam Gase has the best opportunity, but this is the kind of guy that is going to be a very close number 2. He's very smart. He obviously worked well at Texas Tech for the Cardinals to hire him. I think this was a good move. I'm interested to see what it's going to be like going into the future. I like the move. All right, so for my coaching pick thus far, I would say I like Adam Gase the most with the Jets just because it really was just a really solid move. I like that pick. Obviously, the Miami Dolphins and the Cincinnati Bengals do not have a head coach yet, so we're still waiting on seeing where they go. It's probably going to be relatively soon, but yeah, I'm interested to see what they do with those picks. And now let's go into our game picks for the playoffs. I have the Kansas City Chiefs winning, the Saints winning, the Rams winning, and the Pats winning. So these are my picks, obviously. Kansas City Chiefs. How can you not go against the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead? I really do like the Colts. I'm pulling for the Colts to actually win the Super Bowl. But I just don't like how do you stop Patrick Mahomes? Nobody has seemingly done it thus far this year. I just really like the Chiefs in this game. I think going into Arrowhead, it's going to be too much for the Colts. Then obviously I have the Rams over the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys really, really shocked me with that Seattle game. I thought Seattle was the better team. I thought they were going to actually wipe the floor with the Cowboys. But the Cowboys managed to pull it out with good defensive play and decent offensive play. But the Rams are a whole different beast. They are a much different beast. I think the 2 weeks that they've had off, resting their guys, Todd Gurley's going to come back healthy. They're going to be really, really tough to beat. I just don't think that Dallas Cowboys defense is good enough to stop the Rams. Obviously, I picked New England over the Chargers. The Chargers barely squeaked by against the Ravens. And playing New England in Foxborough during the playoffs, they just seem to win. And as much as I really don't like that pick, that's the team that's going to win. And then you have the Philadelphia Eagles at the New Orleans Saints. The New Orleans Saints are going to win that because it is very difficult to play at the Mercedes-Benz Dome, or at the Saints home, with the Saints having home field advantage for them is going to be really, really crucial there. And honestly, the Saints are probably going to end up winning the Super Bowl because they're just playing unbelievable. But you can't quite, turn away the idea of Nick Foles playoffs, really good. So yeah, these are my picks this week. This was This Week in Football. Thanks for everyone who stopped by, and have a good rest of your day. Talk to you next week.